welcome back to the Laux Family Farm. I'm Amber and today I will be taking you on a spring farm tour. Now today is June 20th, which means it is officially the last day of spring. A little bit of procrastination on our part, but honestly, what better day to film a spring garden tour than the last day? So back in February, we did film a winter farm tour. I'll put a link here so that you can check that out. In that video, we go more into the history of how long we've owned our property and what things we acquired with the property that was already originally here and what structures we have put in place already on our farm. So today in this spring farm tour, I really want to focus on the new things that we have done since then. It's been a very busy season, which is why this video is getting to you so late. So since that winter farm tour in February, there's been about 4 main projects. We've expanded our pig pen, built a duck house, and also added rabbits to our farm. And so we had to build a rabbit hutch. And the last, and actually the biggest project, is this new vegetable and cut flower garden. So we're gonna start here today. We are so proud and really excited about how this has turned out. So let's go take a look. So overall, this new vegetable and cut flower garden is close to being finished. There's still some minor things on my end. We need to add some more mulch. And then over the years, we will be building up the beds to enrich the soil. I have this garden basically split in half. I have more vegetables on this side and a big focus on cut flowers, with the exception of some melons and squash on this end. So this area that the vegetable garden is on is actually clay based. In the last video, we explained how we did dig out this pond that is over to the left of the vegetable garden. It's our farm pond. We had an excavating company come out and dredge the pond, and we had them take all the sediment and soil, or in our case, a lot of clay, and just spread it over this area because it was such low ground and we wanted to build up the ground. So with it being clay based, we're kind of at a disadvantage this year. A lot of the beds you'll see, I did have to basically treat it as a container gardening, where I just dug 12 by 12 holes or larger than that and added in my compost and used it more as a container gardening style instead of actual in-ground beds. Over the years, and what we've already started to do is add in our soiled duck bedding and things that we can start building up these beds to make them a beautiful, rich and deep garden bed. So in this garden, I have 12 5 by 35 beds. The entire garden is 75 by 50 and the fence is 5 feet tall. And that is in our area, we do have a lot of deer pressure, rabbits, so that is why we did fence off this area. Here in Northwest Indiana, the deer, if you don't have any sort of structure, they will just demolish your garden. I experienced that last year and it was not fun. All right, so in this first 5 by 35 bed, I have my cucumbers and marigolds, and I'm doing an experiment with the kids, and I have 5 peanut plants. So I've heard you only get about 30 peanuts per each plant, but I thought it would be fun with the kids, just trying to get them more excited about the garden and just nice little science projects for them. I also have a white night sunflower just for decor. I have silver slicer cucumbers, and then also just a regular bush cucumber that will be good for pickling. Now the next garden bed you'll see behind me is planted with tomatoes, peppers, and basil. I have a whole row that is of hot peppers. I have a lot of different fun varieties that I'll show you. I have a pineapple ghost pepper, habanero, carnival cayenne, which is putting on a lot of blossoms for me. We'll be having peppers soon. Variegated jalapeno. Again, a lot of peppers and the most beautiful leaves on this pepper plant. I am just obsessed with it. This variegated jalapeno plant is actually putting out peppers for me, and I'll be harvesting from it soon. Next to that, we have variegated habanero, another absolutely stunning plant. Cherry bomb, Chinese 5-color. Check out that beautiful purple blossom. Another variegated habanero. Peach ghost scorpion. Biggend. Mojo blackie. Now this hot cherry, along with the yellow mama next to it, the serrano slightly, and the dream catcher, which is a beautiful plant. I do need to get out here and get some weeding done, but you'll see I have a little bit of pest pressure on these plants. And so what I've been doing to treat it is diatomaceous earth. We had some rain, so I do need to come back out here and reapply. Now you'll see in these beds that I am using cattle paneling, and these are actually not cattle panels, there's some wire shelving we had, but it's the same idea that we're trellising our tomatoes up. So this bed is slightly split in half. This end I do have my tomatoes and just regular jalapeno plants all the way down. You'll hear in the background a lot of duck commotion. That's because this garden is right next to our pond, as I had mentioned before. Yeah. On this side of the bed, I do have tomatoes and the jalapenos. My jalapeno plants are doing well. However, my tomatoes here and also on this other bed next to me, these tomato plants are really struggling. I cannot decide if it is just from overwater, since this is clay based. There is a lot of water and they're just kind of sitting in it, so I do think that's what it is. There is also some concern that maybe it was exposed to some sort of chemical, like the soil we got maybe was exposed to some overspray. Anyways, I'm hoping that it works itself out, but some of these tomatoes do look pretty rough. See here what I'm talking about, it's extreme leaf curl. But as you see, the pond is right here, and this is where the soil is the most wet. And I'm hoping over the years we can build these beds up and it won't be such a problem. All right, but thankfully the damage it seems pretty much contained to these two sections of tomatoes. I do have mainly Paul Robeson tomatoes here. Some of the other varieties I have are black strawberry and cherry bomb. There were probably 2 plants that did definitely rot out, and I was able to go to a local farm who had some cool green zebra tomato plants that I was able to put in its place, so that I am still using the space, and they're looking great. This is one of the green zebra. I'm hoping, I may have to figure out some other trellising. It was a small determinate cherry tomato plant that was in this place, and I do believe the green zebras get quite large, so we may have to address that at a later date. But you can see I am trying to build up the beds and in these walkways as we get more mulch. I'll continue to keep the weed pressure down with mulching the walkways and then also building up these beds, mainly with our soiled duck bedding, because that is such a great source of fertilizer, and it is cheap and readily available. The other thing I did want to mention is you will see cardboard boxes lining the side. We're still waiting on loads of mulch from our local tree service that does dump here pretty regularly. So that's just something that, you know, like I had mentioned before, there's still some small minor details that are needing to be finished. So these 2 beds as well are planted with tomatoes and peppers. However, on this side, I do have bell peppers. It is important to keep the hot peppers separated from your sweet peppers. So I have green, yellow, and red sweet peppers, as well as some fun Baker Creek variety, Aji something. I'll have to look up the variety and put it here on the screen. I don't remember, but it is a really fun colorful variety of sweet peppers. Now these tomatoes are doing much better than the other side. You'll see they are also already putting on some fruit. Here is a gardener's delight. Some more Gardener Delight tomatoes. So exciting. Now on this bed, I have super sweet tomatoes that are also performing well. I'm trying to get out here regularly and pluck the suckers that grow in between and prune heavily. And these peppers are also looking lovely. In between, I do have companion planted some basil and parsley. This is a purple ball variety from Baker's Creek. And again, I just have some white night sunflowers. These are sunflowers that my son started in my winter jug seed sowing method video. They're doing wonderful. They're getting ready to bloom here, I would say, in the next week. All right, the last bed on this half of my garden, I do have planted with green beans and marigolds. Now the green beans, as you can see, they are yellowing. I do need to fertilize them. They aren't looking the best. We had thought we had some good soil, and I'm starting to question that. That is one of the things with the leaf curling on my tomatoes. I do know they're getting too much water, but I'm starting to wonder if there is an issue with the soil that we did purchase. One of my orange Hawaiian marigolds is getting ready to bloom. Marigolds are great companion plants. They do great with pest management. Now before I make my way onto the cut flower section of the garden on the other half, I do have a galvanized trough in the middle that I've planted with just some ornamental corn and then also some nasturtiums. They're struggling a little. We've started to get into some higher temperatures, and so I am hoping that the corn starts protecting it with some shade. Nasturtiums are a great plant, but they don't tolerate the heat so well. But here in Northwest Indiana, a lot of times we don't have extreme heat all the time, so I'm hoping that they'll pull through. Now another fun feature that's in the middle of my garden, separating the vegetable side from the cut flower side, is this arched trellis, arched cattle panel trellis that my husband put in for me. I am growing a long green bean, a loofah plant, and then some black-eyed Susan vines. And I really can't wait to see this take over and just be a beautiful piece of artwork in the garden. So here's my long pole bean. It's doing pretty well. My loofah plant. I actually have 2 that germinated and are starting. A loofah plant. With this heat, I'm sure they're bound to just take off. And here is the black-eyed Susan vine. I direct seeded these. I've never grown them before, so I am really curious to see how they do. Now I won't go into too much detail on this side of the garden. I did go through and direct seed, and a lot of them are starting to germinate and come up, but it's not a whole lot to look at. I've planted asters, cosmos, zinnias. I've planted started plants that I started this spring of straw flowers, dahlias, amaranth, celosia. Now these 2 beds on the far west side of the garden is where I have squash, melons, and sunflowers. I did direct seed those, and they're just starting to come up. And that really kind of completes this garden. It has just been a wonderful, fun project. My husband has put in a lot of hours of hard work, and I'm just so thankful for him. He's making my dream come true. I've always seen this space on our property, and I've just thought to myself, it gets the best light, and it's just such a beautiful spot being so close to the pond. I've just dreamed of having a garden here, and he really has made that come true, and I couldn't be happier. around 7:30 to 8 o'clock, once the sun starts setting, our ducks do start going to bed. We have them trained to where all you have to say is, "All ducks go to bed," and they start making their way and they put themselves to bed. All right, so if you just follow. All ducks go to bed. Good night, ducks. It's as simple as that. So directly on the east side of my garden is where you'll see our pond area. So what's changed since our winter farm tour is the new duck house that we have located directly behind. So because of the new duck house, which I'll be sure to link the video explaining how we built the duck house. Each morning I let the ducks out around 6:30, 7 in the morning, and they stay out until about 7:30 at night. So they spend a good 12 hours here on the pond. And they just love eating all the fish that we pay to stock in the pond, which is a big frustration for my husband, but such is life. We also had something that was really cool is that we had a big, would you call it infestation of snails, or what would you call it? We had a big infestation of snails in our pond, and having the ducks come out here, they have completely rectified that problem, and we have no more issues of snails taking over our pond. So eating the fish, killing all the snails, it was kind of, you know, it evened things out. The newest addition to our farm is our rabbits. They're mainly the kids' pets, but they do serve a purpose as a fertilizer for all of my gardening efforts. During the day, we, right now in the summer, find a nice shady location, which is typically in this middle area of our property. We have 2 playpens because one of the rabbits is a male and the other 2 are female, and we have no interest in breeding rabbits at this moment in time. So we do keep them separated, and they are pretty happy to spend their days here outside. It's about from 10 a.m. till I would say 7 p.m. is when they are able to get some nice fresh grass, and then we move them back to their hutch, which is located in the back, and the fencing that we have for our chickens, it's about roughly an acre. So this is our male. His name is Snowflake. You can tell a 4-year-old picked his name. He is a lion head rabbit. The other 2 female rabbits are Holland Laux. This is Zoe. And that is Fluffy.
There it is.
Are just trained. So this is the hutch my husband did build. It is big enough for 3 rabbits. Currently, they are not in it. They are, as you saw, in the playpens. So at night and in the early morning is when we make sure that they have ample supply of straw and pellets and fresh water, since they are not out grazing the grass. And we did use hard wire cloth so that their droppings would go to the ground. What we do want to add to that is some sort of tray system to collect the droppings, because our chickens are eating all of my rabbit manure, which the whole purpose, besides being nice, lovely pets for our children, is to have another source of fertilizer besides the ducks during the growing season to fertilize my garden. So behind me you'll see our apple tree. This was the first year that we did do a really hard prune on the tree, and we're hoping that we'll see a great improvement in our apples and have a really good harvest this year. It is starting to put on fruit. We've given it one treatment now of copper fungicide. I'd really encourage anyone that's curious into having both chickens and fruit trees to put them in the same location. It's inevitable with fruit trees that some of the fruit will fall to the ground, and our chickens just love eating it all, and so we never have that nasty smell and just decomposing fruit underneath our fruit trees. And they also take care of any rodents that you'll have with having fruit trees. That is another problem people have with having fruit trees. In the fall last year we did add 2 young fruit trees. One over there is doing absolutely wonderful. We haven't had any issues with it. Now this tree not only has some sort of black ash mold, I believe it's called, or just maybe a black mold. I'm not quite for sure. We've been treating it and it has improved, but it's clear that we need to keep up with treatments. The other thing it has going for it is that our middle child ran it over with his 4-wheeler. So that is why there are some cute little red ribbons tied to the tree, and hoping that that will make them stand out more. And it is also being staked. So this poor tree, we are just hoping for it and rooting for it, but there's a really good chance it might not make it, and we're doing all that we can, and we're crossing our fingers hoping it pulls through. Now, as you'll see behind the fruit trees, we do have this snow fencing. That is to keep our chickens out of this small gardening space. I had an idea that it would be so fun to grow sweet corn. Sweet corn is a very heavy feeding plant. It needs a lot of nitrogen, and this area, it's roughly an acre in our backyard that we have fenced in so our chickens can free range. It's very high in nitrogen from all of our chickens living here the last few years. So I thought it would be a wonderful place for it to grow. And then also, once it gets tall enough, our hope is I'll take down this fencing and the chickens can use it as some shade and also protection from aerial predators. We have really bad red-tailed hawks in our area, and it's, I would say, probably the #1 way we lose our chickens. So it's an experiment. So far it's going well. The chickens have left it alone. My germination is not the best. I didn't plant as heavily as I should have, and it was also a rush to get it into the ground. We had so many projects this year, but overall I'm really happy with it. There is a lot of weeds because we have it fenced off. It's not really accessible for me to get in there and weed it, but again, once we take this fencing down, the chickens are going to love having all of this brush that they can eat. I'm thinking we're gonna give it maybe another month. Another fun discovery though is that there is a volunteer tomato plant growing with the corn. So something on my to-do list this week is to dig this volunteer plant up and relocate it to one of my back kitchen garden beds and see what it is. Now that I'm taking a closer look, I'm realizing it's not just the one tomato plant. There is a bunch. I'm counting 5 so far. It is insane. I don't know if it's just that I fed our chickens tomatoes at the end of last year, the ones that were rotten and fell to the ground. I have no idea how these ended up here. That is so fun. So here's another one. 1, 2, 3,
Four, 6.
4. Oh my goodness, they're everywhere.
There's 7.
What a fun little discovery, especially since I've been so down, just feeling really sad about the water or potential bad soil issue with the vegetable garden, that I actually have a bunch of volunteer tomatoes that are popping up all over the place. It is the joy of gardening right here. The volunteer plants are just the best. Making our way in this direction is where you'll see our blueberry bushes. I explained on the winter farm video that these were original with our property. We did give them a really hard prune this year. Just like the apple tree, it's our first year that we've given them a lot of TLC, and we cannot wait to see if that is going to pay off this year. It's already starting to put on some fruit. So as you can see, there is the slightest amount of color change on this one. Typically mid-July is when we start harvesting blueberries in our area. But these blueberry bushes look incredible. Hopefully that hard prune has just allowed for a lot more airflow and just making these plants be so much more healthy. Last large project that we did have over the spring season was this pig pen expansion. I did do a whole video on it. Again, like all the others, I will link it here. This pen has doubled in size, and about 2 months ago we welcomed onto our farm 3 Mangalitsa crossed with Hereford pigs. We gave them a brand new shelter. And even recently, since the video, did add in a new feeding trough. We have started to ferment our pig's feed. About 4 months ago, we started fermenting our chicken feed, and we've seen a lot of good benefits from that, not just in the health of our chickens, but also in our pocketbooks from saving some money with the rise in feed costs, that we decided to go ahead and start fermenting our pig feed. And they seem to be loving it so far. So we feed these pigs twice a day, once in the morning with morning chores, and then one around this time of day during our evening chores. In the winter farm tour, we went into the history of owning chickens, but we didn't give you an actual tour of the coops, and the ground was so covered in snow you weren't able to see everything. So I am going to be a little bit more detailed this time. The chicken coops, we do have 2 of them. This first coop is our original coop that we started out with. We have nesting boxes on the outside. They're repurposed milk crates. A lot of our ladies do enjoy being outside, so we went ahead and just offered that to them, so we didn't have to keep having Easter egg hunts all around our property. Now when you go inside this coop, you'll see we do have roll-out nesting boxes. These nesting boxes are a really nice upgrade. They have these fold up at night so that none of the chickens can sleep inside them. You can see here, this is what, when the chickens lay the eggs, they're at an incline and all the eggs do roll out. All the eggs do roll out. You'll also see in this first coop, it is where we have a separate nesting box. So in my latest video, you will see that I was able to break some broody hens with giving them week-old baby chicks. And she's still being a great mama. Now this second coop, we don't have any nesting boxes. I did just recently add in another milk crate because most of our new chickens we got back in March, our newest flock, they do tend to stick to this coop. So I'm hoping in the next month or so they should start laying eggs. So I'm hoping that by offering them this milk crate, they'll start using it as a nesting box. To provide water for our chickens, we use repurposed rain gutters. We flip them upside down and attach them to this fence that does keep our chickens out of my kitchen gardens off the back part of our house. This is where I have 4 kitchen garden beds. I did mainly plant these with spring plants that have been harvested. I still have a beautiful calendula plant that's thriving and carrots that do need to be harvested soon. And some of the plants, like this spinach, I am letting go to seed. I'm hoping to collect some of the seeds, some of these colder tolerant plants, and save the seeds to use for my fall garden. Now, besides my 4 kitchen garden beds that I do keep most of my leafy greens, this is also the area that I do keep the fermented feed for our pigs and chickens. I am hoping to do an in-depth video on that. Go ahead and leave a comment if that's something that you would be interested in. All right, so here directly beside my kitchen garden beds and outside of my garage door is where I keep the fermented feed. I have a pallet that is strictly for my chickens. And then on this side of the door, I have a pallet that is strictly for our pigs. Now this bucket here is the food I'll be feeding them tomorrow. You can see that it is bubbling and active.
And stinky.
By tomorrow, we'll have completed a 3-day fermentation process and be ready for the chickens to eat. So I'm now on the southwest side of our property, on the outside of our acre that's fenced in for the chickens and other animals. This area is where I have potatoes, pumpkins, and sunflowers growing. The potatoes were planted and are actually getting close to harvesting. You'll see them behind me here. The foliage is starting to slowly turn yellow and is getting ready to die back, and that's how you know that your potatoes are getting ready to harvest. They started blooming about a week and a half ago. I've also heard that typically 2 weeks after you see potato blooms on the plant, you can expect to be harvesting them. It is starting to get dark. We are running out of sunlight. These videos always take longer than expected. I do apologize about that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't, so you can see future videos in better lighting and actually get a real feel for our property. It is a really beautiful small 2 acres, and we do put a lot of hard work and effort into making it a lovely little space. Now, the sunflowers I have growing here is for a cut flower garden effort. I am succession sowing the sunflowers. Every week I planted sunflowers. And so you'll see that there's 5 beds, and I have sunflowers growing in the back and pumpkins growing in the front. And the hope is that the pumpkins will begin to trail on this mulch area that I have put down cardboard and mulch to suppress the weeds, so that there's plenty of room for the pumpkins to sprawl out and not get tangled in weeds. There is also a lot of volunteer marigolds and zinnias that did come back from last year. I did have in this space sunflowers and pumpkins, and it was such a perfect spot for them that we decided to go ahead and do it again this year. I have 2 more things I want to show you, and I am running out of light, so I'll try to insert some clips I have from previous days. It is our strawberries. We have it right by the kids' playset area. It's in a old antique water trough, And it is just such a joy to have this fruit readily available to our kids each morning. They come out here while they wait for the school bus or while they're playing on the swing set, and they just dig for that treasure of having sweet little strawberries to snack on. And the very last thing I have to show you is that I did put in a new sign on our road for our eggs. And I think it's pretty adorable. The property is located directly off of a semi-busy highway, and so it's a great area for people to stop for farm fresh eggs. So we have this sign just off the front part of our property, and my husband built it and I painted it, and I think it turned out absolutely wonderful. All right, that's all I'm gonna have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Hey, welcome back to the Laux. Keep recording. Nice.